In our current society, it is nigh impossible to engage with a hobby without some sort of financial investment. But there are ways that we can minimize the cost. One thing that comes to mind for me is reading. Sure, buying books, especially if you read a lot, is expensive. So you can go to the library to minimize the cost of buying books. However, how are you going to get to the library? Do you need to drive there? Is it too far that you can't walk there? If you do walk there, um, you need to buy shoes to get there. Maybe you need to have shoes to get to the library, right? At a certain point, there is, even if it's a minimal financial barrier, even if it's a one-time purchase, every hobby has some sort of financial element. And those who are well into their hobbies typically have a pretty good understanding of how they can minimize the amount of money they need to spend. Whether they find a good way to get supplies for cheap, whether they are able to use things like thrift stores to their advantage, buying things in bulk. There are many ways to minimize the costs. However, one pitfall that I've seen in a lot of hobbies, and you know what, I'll go as far as to say almost every hobby, is that those who are selling the things required to partake in that hobby, be it books, trading cards, gaming supplies, have been able to sell something that's not merely the product, but the newness of the product. Now, when you're talking about things like comic books or trading cards, you hear the phrase mint condition or near mint, or damaged. How much because they're paper products or paper-esque products, how much they resemble the product if it came fresh off the mint. How new they look. Is there a scratch on it? Does this trading card have your older brother's gum stain that he left on it, right? Like, there are ways to grade quality. In fact, in things like Pokemon cards, PSA grading is a huge thing. And it's expensive to grade your card, but if you grade it and it's a 10, it sells for so much more because the 10's the best quality, right? But I think it's worth, and that's why I'm making this video, it's worth deconstructing why and how we apply newness or relativity to newness to our hobbies and whether or not we should be doing that. Before we continue, my name is Robin. I go by The Eclectus on YouTube, TikTok, several other platforms. If you want the details, my link tree is in the bio. But back to newness. Now, as I said earlier, this can be applied to almost every hobby, especially any hobby that requires a certain amount of materials. And again, I'm sure you can go in the comments and you can tell me that your hobby doesn't have this problem, and I'll believe you, but all the ones I can think of off the top of the dome, getting things new, getting things at a mint condition has a premium cost to it compared to being able to settle into a lesser quality related to newness. And for some things, I can understand it. Specifically, collectors of things. Like, yeah, if you're collecting comic books and someone offers you to sell you the Superman #1, the first Superman comic, Action Comics 1. Is it Action Comics 1? I don't know. I've kind of been out of the comic sphere a bit. I'm getting back in. If you're collecting that comic, especially if it's something that you want to display, something that you take pride in collecting it looking new, then yeah, of course you want it to look new. And if you met the buyer or the seller, if you met the seller and they showed you a rumpled up Superman comic that's missing 5 pages, you might be willing to pay for it, but you definitely wouldn't pay as much as a new product, as a near mint or a mint condition Superman comic book. So in that case, I do understand it. But on the other side of things, I play Magic the Gathering. And in Magic, there is a collector element, but also the cards have a gameplay element. And there are a lot of Magic players who, if you are not double sleeving your cards, or if you're not buying them at mint condition, they'll kind of like poke fun at you for it. Where it's like, oh, like you might want to put another sleeve on that. Your cards are gonna bend. Which I've had people talk to me about that. I'm just like, well, listen, I don't collect them to look pretty. I collect them to play. And I do buy cards at a lower condition if it means I get a better deal because money doesn't grow on trees, you know. And in terms of hobbies, if there's function in a slightly damaged thing in that hobby, I think we ought to go for it. I think we need to start telling ourselves, listen, if we can still get function out of this, maybe we can ease back on hawking over making sure you have PSA 10s of everything. But there are also other hobbies, though, that I think are damaged worse from this perception of newness. One of them is, for me, that I can really think of is fashion. The idea that you need to get the newest clothes. That if you go to a thrift store, for example, and you find a really nice jacket that you love, but there's like a bit of a stain or a bit of a tear on the cuffs or something like that that's unwearable, right? And again, just like the former examples, I can understand to a degree where that idea comes from. You want to look your best. New looks better. But I was listening to a TikTok one time. I think it was Nick Offerman, where he was talking about how society nowadays, we have become so accustomed to getting everything that we want right when we want it, and the moment something breaks or the moment something becomes slightly blemished, slightly ripped, slightly torn, slightly stained, we toss it aside because, well, we can just go on Amazon and go to Target and buy another one. Clothes have such a short shelf life for those who engage in this kind of behavior. They get tired of their outfits. They don't value the clothes they have, and they toss them out. They don't even donate them. Like, oh, I got a stain on my shirt. Instead of trying to get the stain out or using that shirt for something else, I'm just going to throw it away and get something new. Oh, I just chipped my coffee table. Still works as a coffee table, but it's a chip on it. I wish I did have the chip on it, so I'm going to buy a whole new coffee table at IKEA, And I do buy clothes from the thrift store that might have a bit of a hole in them, might have a slight stain on them, might have a slight tear on the cuff, because my thoughts are, well, this clothes, aside from this small thing, this piece of clothing is valuable to me. I'm willing to pay against the thrift store prices for these clothes, and I can try to get the stain out. Again, usually you can't get stains out of those clothes because they're so old, but I've done things like put patches over stains on like jeans is one thing that like is a pretty neat thing you can do. Tear on the cuffs, you can repair those kinds of things, And again, the ironic thing too is with clothing. New clothes oftentimes are not that great of quality because a lot of the companies that make new clothes, especially if you get them from places like Target or, God forbid, Temu, they're very low quality materials. So the amount of shelf life you can squeeze out of that is so low. If you ever bought a Target t-shirt, that thing barely lasts 5 washes if you're lucky before you cannot get it to keep form. And you tell me I can pay less for an older piece of clothing that is going to last me several years, heck, maybe even decades if I treat it right and follow the right procedures in maintaining it. Oh, the stitching on the cuffs, the stitching around the neck is a little loose. If I really want to, I can learn how to fix that. I can acquire that skill through YouTube. Like back to things like Magic, where it's like, oh, what's this? This card that I want that's kind of expensive on the first-hand market is $80 near mint, but someone's offering it for $30 for a damaged copy. Actually, that reminds me of a story. My friend got the card. I think it was Demonic Tutor. Pretty expensive card, and it's not a penny card. It's not like a Black Lotus or anything. And someone was like, "Oh, there's like a bit of like a crumb or something stuck to the front of this card. I'm gonna sell it for $5 because no one else will buy it." My friend bought that card, took a little scalpel, flung the little crumb off of it. The art underneath was almost undamaged. I think he later sold it for like a lot more than he bought it. And like people are so quick to give up on things the moment they don't look new, because we as a society are so we are sold on the fact that new is good. New is good. If you buy something used, it's old and unwanted, which is not true. Again, people talk about owning books and buying books being expensive. Buying new books is expensive. I get all of my books when I can. I try to get books at local bookstores, specifically used bookstores, or thrift books, like thriftbooks.com, you know? That's where I do all my Christmas shopping for people a lot of the times, is I'll order stuff off of thrift books, and I can get like a book that at like a big box store would be $25. I can get it for like $3 or $4 paperback, you know? And also things like, why do I have to, for example, I stopped buying hardcover books. Why? Because all my books are well loved, because I travel a lot and I kind of cram them in my bag all the time, and I used to try really hard to not do that, in vain. I'm sure I could have tried harder, but I still lend those books out and I still reread them, because despite the fact that the spine is damaged and the cover is scratched and there's dirt on page 39, despite all of that, it still holds its function. Newness is not equal function for things like books, clothes, magic cards. And I do get the desire of having things new. I do. And I've fallen down that hole. But the moment that I realized, hey, no one's going to notice if I thrift this jacket and there's a slight hole in one of the seams. Hey, I'm going to play this magic deck, and maybe one weirdo is going to notice that the card that I'm playing like has a slight rip on the left corner. It's in a sleeve though, and I can still play the card just fine. My copy of this book is battered. It's bruised. No one's going to comment on that when I'm reading it, And I do understand that thrifting has made a big comeback in recent years. It has become almost trendy to a certain point. But there are a lot of people I'll see in thrift stores who they will go thrifting because they are told, oh, you can get some cool clothes there, and they're disappointed that the clothes they find at the thrift store are used. So I think you are obviously not required to do anything. But I think it's to all our benefit if we can sort of assess what we value in newness, in mint condition, and kind of deconstruct that a little bit. But hey, what do you think? Do you think I am understating the importance of such markers of quality? Feel free to talk to me. Again, I'm open to being wrong, but I thought I'd just talk about that. It was on my mind recently. I was doing a lot of thrifting this weekend, and it kind of just popped in the noggin there. But hey, talk to me in the comments. In the meantime, stay frosty. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.